Alright lads, my name is Metagoblin and welcome to another countdown. Today we will be looking at 10 reasons why Skyrim was such a good RPG and why it's still an incredibly popular game still today. Now I would have named this video 10 reasons why Skyrim was an improvement after Oblivion, but you know, it's obviously not so catchy. Anyway, obviously all of these reasons are completely subjective to different people's opinions, and most of the reasons have a bit of both sides to them. Now this video is a response to a previous video which counted down 10 reasons why Oblivion was better than Skyrim. Now the problem with that video was that it was very opinionated and it was delivered in a very harsh manner, kind of degrading Skyrim in a way which I never actually properly intended. And this wasn't because I hated Skyrim in any way. It was because the sole purpose of that video was to convince two of my friends to start playing Oblivion, which they still haven't because they're retards. I thought it would only get like 200 views since, you know, it's not particularly like the normal the usual content upload to my channel. You know, I just never expected it to get so popular. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Now the first great thing about Skyrim, you may like it, you may not, was the less restrictive character creation in the form that there was actually no character creation other than your physical appearance. And the main issue with Oblivion's class creator was that if you're pretty new to the game, you don't particularly know what all the skills do. So you might end up making a mistake because you later on find one of the skills, you know, pretty boring or useless to your current character. I think it's a problem that most older role-playing games have, especially like sometimes you just, you know, you get a screen with all these things and all these dice to roll for. I mean, it's kind of a problem if you don't really know what you're doing. Another problem with Oblivion was the major and minor skill system, where if you leveled up all of your minor skills, it wouldn't count towards leveling up. So you couldn't change your mind. I mean, if you wanted to change your mind about your skills later on in the game, you just have to make a new character. That was kind of a problem. You know, I still like the class system, class creator system, because if you're an experienced player with the game, and you can basically create your character, you know, the way you want to play it, and it's alright if you're experienced with the game. But if you're completely new to the game, it's, you know, it's a bit of a block. It kind of prevents you from, you know, really creating maybe the character that you want, because you need to discover the character you want to play before you're like given, you know, the choice. It's like saying, like, you know, you're applying for a university course and you're given all these options. You don't really know a lot of information about all these courses, but you just have to choose one. I mean, you wouldn't want that really, would you? Anyway, back to the script. So perhaps in the tutorial for Skyrim, you should have had the opportunity to experience and learn all the skills before you created your class, rather than just removing it, you know, removing the system. And it would probably have been better if the class creator didn't restrict you to a particular set of 7 skills, but only give you the first perk of a skill tree instead. And while we're talking about the skill tree, let's talk about the skill tree. It was a highly customizable and interesting method to level up your character. Fair enough, some of the perks were only mathematical and a bit boring, but some perks actually gave you some really fun advantages, like being able to summon 2 Atronachs at once or the chance to decapitate someone. It added a more complex, strategic and fun way to play the game, and it's something Oblivion definitely missed, since there's only like 4 perks per skill. So although without the class creator system, the perk system still adds a level of complexity and challenge to the game. The next thing I really liked about Skyrim was the immersive features introduced into the game, which go back to a very classical style of RPG game, and these features were improved even more with the mods. I have to take mods into consideration into this game, since they are so accessible and make the game 10 times as good. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is like when you walk into an inn, for example, you hear bards singing, people talking and chilling around a big campfire, normal fire, a hearth, and the innkeeper will even show you to your room when you ask her. There's also a marriage system. You could have children, which gave you the ability to actually become a person rather than just a faultless brute mercenary. If you want to increase your immersion in this game, I recommend the mods I Need and Frostfall. You'll find a mod list in the description of this video, and if it's not there, you know, just give me a bell and heckle me until I put it there. Surprisingly, Oblivion really lacked in immersive features actually. If you go back to Arena and Daggerfall, the immersive features were even more extensive to the point where it became, you know, it could just become its own game. Like, you wouldn't even have to go around killing people. You could basically just go around chatting to people and become a bard. The bard kind of way of playing the game was a thing back in them days. Now the guild quests for Skyrim and some of the other big quest lines like Markarth, which You know, they were incredibly well structured and interesting, but not a lot can be said for the main quest, I have to say. The Dark Brotherhood and Thieves Guild had an unexpected plot twist and chaotic scenes of betrayal, which is what a good, it's what good stories should have. If there's no conflict in the story, if there's no betrayal, I mean, what's the point of writing? The Markov quest is probably my favourite. I only just discovered it recently, and I've literally been playing the game since release. Until I did this quest, I believed that this Force one were a bunch of, just sick maniacs who kind of ate human hearts. But by the end of the quest, it kind of challenges a gamer as to where they put to put their allegiance and sympathy. It just sheds like a new light on the Force one, which is I just found quite interesting. So if you haven't done it, definitely go to Markov. They're quite, when you go into Markov and that guy, somebody dies, someone murders someone, do that quest, because I just like neglected it for so long, and when I did it, it's surprisingly really good. Anyway, back to the script. I think overall the story was probably better in Oblivion, except maybe for some of the guild storylines, but I feel that Skyrim's character, the characters had a bit more flesh to them, and they developed better, overall. There was more emotion and realism to the characters, where in Oblivion the characters just felt like plain chess pieces who just kind of held the plot in place, but didn't really impact the gamer on an emotional level. While we're on the topic of story, I feel that Dawnguard also had quite a compelling and exciting storyline, probably the best storyline in Skyrim. It also further developed the vampire and werewolf features in the game. It's another thing that Oblivion lacks, which, before Dawnguard, in Skyrim it felt a little underdeveloped and something that was just rushed in. You wanted the fact that you were a vampire to affect the story and environment of the game. It just kind of felt stupid how it wasn't acknowledged by other major story characters. The extra perk system implemented just added a little bit more appeal to becoming a vampire werewolf. I didn't kind of like how it only gave perks for when you were in werewolf form or vampire form. Like, it should have given you perks like when you're not in those forms. Like, for instance, more resistance to sunlight, just something like that, but oh well, it's just my opinion. Back to the script. Again, the Dragonborn feature, I'm not talking about the DLC, but the actual fact that you were Dragonborn, it also added more character development, and although some of the shouts were quite flawed, and some of them just basically were, as you leveled them up, they actually became worse, some of them did have cool and sometimes, hilarious advantages, like Fuss Rodar, knocking people off, cliffs and stuff. That is just hilarious. And the dragons themselves improved the game, since they were like these immersively implemented boss fights. Like, they weren't just at the end of a dungeon crawl, because they actually began to attack you while you were inside, a city or town. And now, I know I said in a past video, like, oh, the whole thing with the Daedra and the portals opening. The thing that kind of was bad about that is that, well, there weren't Daedra popping out the cities like randomly, like it does in Skyrim. And I think that's something that Skyrim does, because obviously these games are about the end of the world. The main story is about the end of the world. In Oblivion, it felt more evil, and it felt more dark and really quite scary. And you understood like what the characters were doing, why these was mental people trying to end the world. In Skyrim there was just dragons, and you're like, whereas there's no characterization in the dragons, it's just dragons randomly attacking the world. I mean, why are they attacking the world? But like the whole fact that they actually properly attack cities and stuff, it kind of made you feel that the world was really ending more, I guess. But anyway, let's stop talking about it. Now, on this list I'm going to put mods, just simply mods as a number on this list, since, it's such a prominent feature of Skyrim these days. The mod community is deeply expansive, and, I don't know any other game that has come close to Skyrim in the popularity of a mod community. It's got to a point where you simply can't play the game without certain mods. Standardisation in Skyrim was a great feature which eradicated the awkward and irritating factors of the game. Like, for instance, an annoying thing about Oblivion was how you could only increase certain attributes by increasing certain skills, which, it's kind of a pain, because if you wanted to use spells which governed willpower but not intelligence, you would constantly have a low mana pool but high magic regeneration. And it was kind of just a little bit broken, to be honest. Really, they should have just given you 5 attribute points no matter what, and you could distribute them wherever you wanted. Like, each time you leveled up, I think that would have been a much better leveling system. Another example would be if you wanted to level illusion, which is obviously a magical skill, requires magic to do it wouldn't affect your magic at all. I mean, because of illusion governed personality, so you're increasing your personality attribute. It's just like you use one illusion spell and all your mana's gone. So it was kind of it was just kind of crap, really. You know, if you wanted to be a mage as well, like overall, and you did it properly, you'd have an extremely low health pool because you didn't increase your endurance attribute, which kind of was horrible because you just get hit in like one hit. You get killed in one hit. So though Skyrim removed some of the more technical enjoyable features from Skyrim, it also got rid of the pain in the backside features. Now the melee combat in Skyrim, and I suppose the range combat and everything, it definitely had its improvements, and although I kinda slagged it off in the other video because I didn't like magic as a separate function, there were some big improvements on Oblivion, like for instance Oblivion's power attacks, especially the backwards power attack. Basically, once you became an expert in blade or the blunt skill, you were given a special backwards power attack, which could only be performed while moving backwards and holding down the attack button. So obviously the main issue here was that if you're moving backwards, well, you're not going anywhere near your enemy, so it would probably miss you completely, unless your enemy was charging at you or something. I mean, you could control it by moving slowly with the controller or holding shift on the keyboard, but even then, it just didn't feel good. It just wasn't well made at all. It just didn't. It just felt awkward and just not fun. I mean, Skyrim, it didn't get it perfectly right, but it kind of did in a way. There were some improvements with the variation in finishing moves to keep the combat feeling, awesome and fresh every time you kind of killed someone. And the perk system gave more interesting advantages like bleed effects, sprint attacks, and fast dual wield attacks. However, while researching for this video, looking online, there was actually a backwards power attack in Skyrim. I completely forgot about that. But to be honest, like the other perks in the skill tree, you make up for those, because there was a lot of useless perks in Skyrim. Some of them just were worse than, like, some of them just made your skills worse, and they were just weren't worth getting. But overall, the perks, like I don't know, about 70% of the perks were fine, and it kind of made up for it. Now, for the last reason, for number 10, I'm going to highlight followers, which is something barely done in Oblivion, since you could only get like pet Atronachs with a DLC or actual NPCs during quests. Now, a follower feature also added this kind of characterization to your own character, because you're actually capable of having a friend. Sometimes you can get lonely while adventuring on your own. And so some disturbing jokes from Cicero about hawkers and other disgusting things now and again can kind of cheer you up and boost your morale. But fortunately, it can kind of drive you insane. But obviously, it's alright if you just keep changing followers. There's also like having a personal bank, which obviously had its perks. And but a follower was a great way to make use of all the epic loot you found that you can't actually use. Because it doesn't apply to your current skills. Say for instance, you only used a one-handed skill, but you find this awesome bow, and you're like, well, you just give it to your follower, so you can still make use of it. That's the only reason why I actually bother with a follower. But anyway, lads, that concludes this video. If you're new to my channel, be sure to give me a sub and check out my other content similar to this video by clicking the playlist link in the description. My name is the Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao.